All right. Sorry, I was trying to figure out why I was like slurring through the beginning of my thing because I was forgetting something. I just remembered what it is. I'm supposed to introduce next session's classes. I was just sitting here like I know I'm forgetting something, but it's next week's classes. So they don't know where, and they're not live on Church Center yet. They said they will be by Sunday, but I'm supposed to introduce them. Number one is Daryl. He's going to be teaching about Old Testament feasts and festivals and celebrations. So if it's a feast, if it's a festival, if it's a celebration, and it happens in the Old Testament, we're going to study about it. I don't necessarily have an example. I don't know how deep he's going. I don't know, if he's, what's that? Passover feast, yeah. I don't know if he's going like big picture or like inside. I don't know. So yeah, Passover, I would assume he would probably talk about Passover. But yeah, I don't know how deep he's going. So I don't know. It sounds interesting to me just because I don't know. That's a really, I don't know, just an area I wouldn't think of studying, but that's pretty cool. And then we're actually getting an expert for the next class. Professor Anthony Neer is going to teach us about good stewardship. So Professor Neer, do you have anything to add on your stewardship class? Sounds good. So you got, a week and a half, 2 weeks to decide which class you want to take. So they both sound good. Yeah.
So then next week will probably just be Ecclesia?
Yeah, next week is Ecclesia. Yeah, next week is Ecclesia. Have they said anything about food yet? Sign up. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we're not going to miss that. So, please sign up. Please be ready to sign up for class on Sunday. So, yes, sorry, that's what I forgot. And so I wanted to get it out there before I forgot because I promised Chris I would say something and then immediately didn't. So back to the questions then. Can there be other costs, or what other costs are there to martyrdom other than life? We've been talking about life a lot, but what about some others? What we got? All of those, right? Relationships, freedom, security. Those are good ones. And we've already talked about people losing those things. Yeah. Job. Yeah. Yeah, Bella. Reputation. Absolutely. Right? All of those are great examples. And you don't really have to answer this out loud, but what's a really easy way to keep those? To make sure you're safe, make sure your reputation stays in check, make sure you keep your job, make sure you keep that relationship. Well, be quiet, yeah. Stop professing the truth, stop professing Jesus. So we're gonna talk about that tension. That's kind of what we're gonna be talking about today. Where is the front lines of martyrdom today? Nigeria, right? Talked a little bit about that last week, right? Nigerian Christians killed by ISIS and other groups. China, India, Middle East, North Korea, Minnesota, yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of connects to that last bullet point there is how does the Great Commission connect to martyrdom? And we've been connecting it over the last couple of weeks. Yeah, it doesn't say, pick your favorite 5 nations and spread the gospel there, right? Yeah, it says all the nations. And one of the things I like about, Jim Elliott's story is, well, nobody's been to that nation. I guess I will do it. And so, yeah, it says to go to all the nations, and so that's something that we need to take seriously. And sometimes you're going to be martyred there, as we've learned. So yeah, there is a deep connection between there. We've been talking a lot about martyrs that are missionaries, right? We've kind of drawn this parallel between missionaries and martyrdom. But really kind of where I'm getting at is, how do you define a missionary, right? Anytime I hear the word missionary, I think of like a tropical third world country, right? That's what I think of. And then I think of, obviously Christians spreading the gospel there. I think about the newsletters that we get from our missionaries. But is that too shallow of a definition? Okay, maybe not. Maybe is it a good definition?
I think you could define a Christian or a missionary as just anybody who's taking the gospel to people who haven't heard it yet.
Yeah, I would agree. And so for that, missionary can mean a lot of things, right? Especially if it's your mission to do that. But I would argue it's all of our missions to do that. So again, these are just kind of review questions, but then also kind of hopefully getting your mind all warmed up for what we're going to talk about here coming up. So I always start, after the questions, start out with a missionary story, or not a missionary story, a martyr story. So I have this one. So this guy, this martyr, he goes to work every day. He is traditionally a blue-collar worker, but over the last few years, he was able to move into the white collar. And a lot of it is because he didn't fit in with a lot of the workers there at his blue-collar job. They talk kind of tough. Their after-work activities were not dignifying of a good Christian man. So he didn't hang out with a lot of people there, and so he got the promotions. But he's kind of been stuck. Middle management hasn't been able to grow. A lot of it is because he doesn't partake and doesn't get to know a lot of his people. And he talks about Jesus too much. He's at the water cooler. People are dealing with problems. And one of his first suggestions is, have you tried church? He invites people to Resurrection Sunday to his service, his church's local church's service, and is sort of shunned for it. He doesn't really talk to some of his family. Some of the family he does, but other of his family disapprove of how they're raising their children to make sure that they're in church, that they don't do certain activities, that they listen, that they dress properly, and that they don't partake in events that they see as unchristian. They celebrate holidays together. They take the Sabbath seriously. They work together on going on missions trips together. They serve in their community. They have been told by multiple family members and multiple people at work that faith is a private matter. I'm glad that Jesus works for you, but I'm really sick and tired of the Jesus talk. This martyr stands up for controversial political issues at work and in his family, saying biblical truth like God designed marriage between a man and a woman. God does not have subjective truth. God is the objective truth. That no matter what age, 27 months, 27 years, or 27 weeks, murder is murder. So who's the martyr? You guys knew the martyr last week. You spoiled my story because you knew him. Jim?
Elizabeth's husband is Robbie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Jim Elliott from last week. Any other guesses? Yes, you should. I think it's all of us. I think it's all of us. Should be all of us. Now, I don't think I described the exact life of every single person in here, but how many people can relate to at least one thing in that story, right? I think we all, if we are professing Christians, that sometimes we rub people the wrong way when it comes to how we, carry ourselves at work or with family members, or our political discussions and political views on when it aligns with God's truth. I think it's all of us. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today is, are you ready? Because it could be us. You might know who this guy is. He is. I mean, he doesn't just sell them, he bakes them as well. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, to a non-traditional marriage, right? And so he sued all the way to the Supreme Court, saying that he had a constitutional right to deny service when it was based on his religious beliefs, and the Supreme Court agreed with him. He refused to bake cakes for anybody who he would violate his conscience, or, as I would like to put it, violate God's law. He says, I'm not doing that. And he was sued for it, sued for discrimination, and went all the way to the Supreme Court and won. How easy would it have been to just make the stupid cake? Take one thing out of his day, go on, and nobody would even think about it. Probably save him a ton of money. It probably save him a lot of headache and save him a lot of notoriety. By the way, I don't think I said his name, Jack Phillips. Probably save him a lot of notoriety, right? But he said, no, that's not who I am, and I'm not going to sacrifice God's word and God's truth for comfort or for simplicity or for convenience. What about this guy? Well, that's a good guess because that is who that is. Yeah. Look, he definitely talked about other stuff, but he was a professing Christian. And he did let God's truth dictate how he saw the world. And he would not be silenced. What about the people here? How many people are martyrs every single day that we don't even realize? Or how many people run into those situations? Or will run into those situations in the future? All right, now I got a real story of a real guy, not one that I made up. But Alexander Solzhenitsyn, I was really excited about this one because I actually talk about him in like my real class. So I didn't have to do as much research as I do on like some of these other martyrs. So Solzhenitsyn, the spelling of his name will be on the test at the end. So he's a world-renowned author. He was a soldier in World War II for the Soviet Union. He grew up in the church. He was baptized, but again, definitely a lukewarm Christian. Wasn't forefront of his life, and unfortunately, another religion took over his life early on, the religion of Marxism. And so he gets deep into this Marxist-Leninist ideology, fights in World War II for the Red Army with the Soviet Union, and then criticizes the Soviet government, which is not the United States. You criticize that, what do they do to you? Gulag, yeah, and that's exactly where he goes, right? The Gulag. Okay, the Gulag is technically just a prison under the Soviet system, but it's a political prison, and it's pretty nasty. Very, very nasty. And I mean, political prisoners, these are people that stood up against the Soviet Union or that Stalin himself saw as a threat. And all he did was criticize the government. I don't know about you, but I would be in the gulag a long time ago if we had that problem. I criticize the government all the time. Even when I'm happy with what they're doing, I criticize how happy I am about it. But God comes first. And I don't care where I live as long as I'm able to worship God the way that he tells me to. I want to be obedient to his word. But with that being said, there's not a day that goes by that I don't thank God that I was born here in the United States, that we have these protections that we do. I'm very passionate that the Constitution is written for godly people, and we need to follow it to as closely as we possibly can. I don't think that we always do. I don't think we're perfect, but I do think the more that we follow God's word and the more that we follow the Constitution, the more that we are able to follow what God wants us to do. And so again, I'm sorry, that really has nothing to do with anything. I just like to say it because it makes me mad that people like this criticize the government and then they get thrown into a pretty nasty political system. And what helped him through the gulag? Well, the line dividing good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being. That's his famous quote. He found God again while in the gulag and saw that God is everything good with the world and saw that everything bad, including the ideology that he fought for, was evil. And it took going to probably the nastiest hell on earth to figure that out. And so once he's exiled in Kazakhstan, he does make his way to Switzerland eventually after he escapes and leaves. And then he does make it to the United States. Very famous author. So the book that he writes is The Gulag Archipelago, which is where we, like here in the West, how we know so much about gulags, especially before the fall of the wall. Gulag Archipelago, tough read. But it's really interesting because it tells you the life of the gulags, tells you about the political prisons, tells you how much 1984 stuff is going on in the Soviet Union. But the cool thing about this story is how much the Christian story is found here and how much that, Jesus is able to kind of pull him through. And he dedicates his life to pulling people towards Christianity and not towards state religion. He even had problems here in the United States. He's like, look, the United States is cool and all, but it's not the promises of Jesus. And again, he doesn't die. That's the remarkable part of his story. He doesn't die. Well, he does. I mean, he'd be over 100 now. But he doesn't die as in being executed. But martyr doesn't mean death, does it? What does martyr mean? Witness, right? Which you often suffer for, yeah. It means witness, right? And so not all martyrdom is sudden. Some of it is slow, some of it is costly, and some of it is quiet. Look, if you look at it from a secular perspective, it completely ruined his life. I mean, he was high in the Communist Party, and all he did was make one mistake, and it completely ruined his life. Now, he wouldn't say that. He would say it saved his life because he was able to find Jesus again. But from a secular perspective, he lost his family, he lost his status in a society, he lost his job, all because he criticized the government and was able to find Jesus, which kept him there long. I don't know if I told you the hard story. Kept him there longer. He refused to renounce Jesus, and so it kept him there longer. He actually had a chance to leave, but converting to Christianity or coming back to Christianity hurt that. Again, Soviets don't want Christianity, right? They want to be the religion in town. Again, nothing different than what we've talked about. So remember, martyr, not Marty, martyr means witness, right? And so what is the level of witness here in our modern life? Number one is social cost. We're intolerant. Doesn't your book say something about not judging people? Why can't you just let people live the way they want to live? Why can't you tolerate different people that don't think like you? You know, if you were born in the Middle East, you'd be a Muslim. I don't understand why you're complaining about other people not being Christian. Or, hey, I don't want to partake in that activity anymore. I don't want to be around when you're talking about, gossiping or telling inappropriate stuff. Well, then why on earth do we hang out anymore? Or, hey, you've changed since you started going to church. Hey, I want to continue to live in my sin, even though they probably won't call it that. I don't want you, judging me all the time. Loss of friendship. Loss of community, whatever it is, or whatever lack of community you had before Christ. What about vocational costs? Career limitations. Sometimes it's easier to get that promotion when you don't live by God's truth. And it could be any sin you'd like to choose. Gossip. It's really, really easy to make up a fake story or pass along a real story about the guy that's up for the promotion that I am. So I get the job. It could be something like stealing. It could be something as, illegal for me to get that job. Be really easy, whatever scale you want. But because I'm refusing to not do that, or I'm refusing, maybe it's something as simple as just refusing to be quiet. What if you call out sin in the workplace? Like, hey, that's not okay. I don't want to work in a place like that. Boss is like, he's a troublemaker. Don't want to pass on him. Don't want to promote him. Pressure to conform to ideology. Really easy to do inappropriate stuff or non-Christian stuff at the lunch table when everybody else was doing it. And being asked to affirm things that you don't believe. Now, I'm lucky, very blessed to work in a school district where I don't have to deal with that much. I'm not saying that it's been perfect. I'm not saying that some things haven't happened that I don't feel like is very godly. But I've heard stories. One of the ladies that does the Fellowship of Christian Students with us worked at a school district, and she was tasked to lead what did she call it? The transitioning student alliance. She's like, yeah, I'm not doing that. And they said, well, if you're not going to do that, if you don't stand on this agenda that we're trying to push, use those words, then you can get out of your contract right now. And that's exactly what she did. She's like, I'm not putting up with that. I'm not standing up for that. How easy would it have been to just do your job? You're like, I don't really believe in that, but it's a job, right? I think there's a lot of jobs where sometimes we're asked to affirm things or do things that go against our conscience. And do we have enough guts to stand up for it? What's that?
I'm watching it a bit.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
For me, the first sign was.
Absolutely. I 100% agree on that. There's, I don't even remember what it was, but we were watching a movie. This was in college. We were watching a movie, and it wasn't like. Now I'll be honest. I was not, attending church, or I had not found Jesus yet in college. So I watched, some pretty violent, bad movies. But this one, if I remember right, was not that bad. It was not that bad, relatively speaking. And this girl, it was a big group, and this girl was like, I don't watch movies that are above PG. I was like, weirdo. I was like, I don't understand that. But the more that I think about it and the more that I'm an adult, I think about that girl a lot. And I say, wow, she stood up and she was willing to look like an idiot in front of all these people, look like a child to say that I don't watch movies that are not PG or below. Because I don't want to see inappropriate stuff. And I admire her now. And I would say COVID is the same way. It's like, look, if you're convicted, if you're saying, look, this goes against what I believe in, I feel led to say that this is wrong, then yeah, absolutely, like stand up for it. And yeah, I think a lot of people did during COVID. No, I think that's a great example. All right, so the next one requires a little bit of explaining. Legal and cultural pressure. Now, cultural pressure, I don't think needs a lot of explaining. I think inside and outside religious circles, I think there is culture to push us to positions we don't believe in. What do I mean by inside? Have we seen churches that have strayed a little bit, to put it mildly? Yeah, whole denominations. I really grieve by being, like, if I was an outsider looking in and not understanding, how church works and what the Bible teaches and things like that, and seeing like, man, I'm on the side of the people that are more tolerant. Like, I can just see that being an argument. Now, obviously, being an inside, I want to explain that that's not true at all. But tolerance is this idea of virtue, that to be virtuous is to be tolerant. And so that's why Christians, they come back at Christians and say, well, you're just intolerant. Melissa in her math class, somebody told her 2 + 2 is 5, and she's like, no. And they said, well, you're just intolerant. You horrible bigot. Like, I think it's that simple. I think it really is that simple. I'm intolerant because it's against the truth. Yes, I fully admit I am intolerant of falsehood. I don't like it when my daughters lie to me. I don't like it when the culture tries to live in a false way. Yeah, I guess that makes me intolerant, I suppose. But we see that tolerance is this virtue that it really shouldn't be. And again, we could sit here all day and talk about like postmodernism and relativism and all that stuff, but seeing that as when we refuse to buy into that junk. Religious conviction, again, just this idea of, oh, you're just religious. I'm glad that works for you. It's just a religious thing. You're just one of those religious kooks. When no, we're following truth. Cultural expectations. You're supposed to be nice. You're supposed to, not say those things. And then public policy is kind of the big one. Look, I was very nervous to put this up here because I don't like alarmists. I don't know. I just don't like alarmists. I don't know a nice way to put it, but I just don't like alarmists. Meaning, like, I don't think that in 5 years, we're gonna, be hanged for being Christians or anything like that, or that, that they're gonna burn the First Amendment and or that, they're gonna march on our homes and take our kid. Look, I don't think that's gonna happen. But I think somebody's making a pretty good effort at trying some of this stuff. And I could be wrong, right? When we're sitting in the camp, you can tell me I was wrong. Well, yeah, you say you were wrong. You were wrong. But I don't want to be alarmist, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I don't think that stuff is around the corner, at least right now. But again, public policy has been very scary. Being a teacher, the whole, it's gotten a lot better in the last couple of years, but the pronoun business, like that was a mess, a giant mess. And I mean, it still is to, in some places. I think we've kind of got it under control, but or at least as much as it can. But man, it just worries me, like what kind of policies are going to come out, and then they're going to make me follow them, or like policies like that come out, from the government. Like, could you imagine if that guy lost his case, Jack Phillips lost his case, where we could be compelled by the law to do things that we disagree with? I hope that that's not around the corner. I don't think it is. I don't think that it's 5 years away. But how do you start a journey of 1,000 miles? Yeah, with a single step, right? Yeah. So again, I just, sorry, I'm saying it like 400 times because I don't want anybody to think I'm being like, this, scary, like this is about to happen. I don't think so. But again, do you see how it could lead that way if we have, policies in place? If you ever go to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., highly recommend it. Do something happy afterwards, go do something happy afterwards. But they have, it's a poem, and it's a really famous poem, and they have it above so they have a shoe room. So you walk on like this glass bridge, and there's thousands of shoes, and they're real shoes that they took off Holocaust victims. And so it's just like sobering to be like, wow, these actually held the feet of people that were massacred. And they have the poem above, and it's, first they came for the trade unionist. Well, I didn't say anything because I'm not a trade unionist. Then they came for the gypsies. Well, I'm not a gypsy, so I didn't say anything. And then they came for the priests. Well, I'm not a priest, so I didn't say anything. And then they came for the Jews. Well, I didn't say anything because I'm not Jewish. And then they came for me, and there was nobody left to say anything to me or about me. And so I always think about that a lot, is like, look, it starts with the slippery slope. And so I don't think we should wait until the crazy stuff happens. I think we should make sure that we're actively involved and make sure that we are martyring ourselves. Now, what does martyr mean? Witnessing, right? I think we should be witnessing for Christ and not allowing even the little things to go against God's word and God's truth. That is true martyrdom in 2026. So early Christians faced, this is my hopefully tying up all 6 weeks. Early Christians deny Christ or die. Honor the emperor, deny Christ, declare Caesar as Lord, or you die. Modern Western Christians often face, keep Christ private, keep everything comfortable. Your Jesus talk is it makes people very uncomfortable. Well, good, I think that says something, right? But that's what we face. And again, I've been talking about a lot about what we face, kind of hoping you answer how do we respond to that. And my answer would be, we have to be a martyr, meaning we have to be a witness. Dying versus living. I think a lot of people in this position would ask the question, are you willing to die for Christ today? And I think that's a good question, but I think that's the wrong question. I don't think that's the question to ask at the end of the martyr class. It's, are you willing to witness for Christ? That's the question we need to ask ourselves. Not, are we willing to die for Christ? Are we willing to witness for Christ? I don't think that God calls all of us to die for Christ. I mean, maybe he does, I don't know. But he definitely did to Polycarp, definitely did to Jim Elliot. But again, I don't think we should ask ourselves, are we willing to die? I think we need to ask ourselves, are we willing to witness for Christ in every situation? Post-discuss questions. Give you guys a little bit to talk about it, and then we will wrap up at the end. All right. First question. Does anybody, this is kind of just a reflection question. So, if anybody wants to personally share, they can. If not, it's not a big deal. I don't think it's necessary for group discussion, but could be helpful. I'm sure we're all in the same boat. Oh, yeah. Especially like friends you had before you came to Christ, or maybe friends at work that you know because you work with them. Yeah. Your church friends, they're not too bad. But
I know.
Yeah. Anybody else? That's good. Yeah. I think that's a good analogy of just, but I also think it leads us to our second question of, I don't think you're called to break down the door and say, all right, you guys are believing in Jesus before you can leave. You know what I mean? The drip analogy I think is great. And I think that takes wisdom to know when to, sprinkle a little bit of the Holy Spirit and when, and when not to. So, yeah, absolutely. Anybody else on number 1? Those are all really good. All right. Did anybody else have anything to add on number 2 there? Wisdom and compromise. Again, I think that's a great analogy of sometimes, we can't just come in and, and start browbeating people. But at the same time, we are called to spread the gospel and stand up for truth. I mean, that's what this class has been about. So where's the middle ground? That's good. That's really good. Is it, something personal? Is it something like inconvenience? You don't want to be argumentative? That's my problem, is I've had perfect opportunities and I just don't want to seem argumentative. So because I don't like people that are argumentative. So I never want to come across as argumentative. There's sometimes that are not even biblical reasons. They could be secular reasons. We could be talking about the weather, and I'm like, that is true. It did snow yesterday. Yeah, but I have no idea. Like, I don't know. I just hate being argumentative. And a lot of it stems from the argumentativeness that I get at home. And just kidding. But yeah, no, I 100% get that. Anybody else on that? The wisdom and compromise. Have any wisdom about wisdom? Daryl said something, it's been a while back now, it was in a sermon where he was like, God doesn't need you to win against the keyboard warriors, or something to that effect. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's true. Do you have something? Sorry. Yeah. No, that's true. I mean, and that's the world we live in. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I think social media has done a lot of good for our society. I mean, I keep up with people that I have, would never see again, probably. But I think it has done a lot of damage. I mean, we could stay here all day and talk about the damage, but that's one of them for sure. All right. Decently loaded question. Anybody want to say what they're going to do? Or what they would do? Yeah, if you're a lukewarm Christian and then all of a sudden you're put in this position, you may not have as much going. Like, I mean, I think you should always prepare. Yeah, I agree. I got to be honest. I 100% agree with that answer, because if I bumble the first question, if there are times where I should have shared my faith and I don't, or I use compromise instead of wisdom, I don't have much hope for the third question, where it's like, well, I wouldn't talk to that stranger when I had a perfect opportunity to. I could have said that thing at work, but I didn't want to be argumentative. But now that I'm, about ready to be killed, like, that's the time. But at the same time, maybe death brings clarity. I heard that at this table. I don't know. I just, exactly what Rebecca said. I'm just going to prepare. I'm just going to do what God has asked me to do, and have him take the wheel. I can't say Jesus because Carrie Underwood will copyright me, but because we're going on YouTube. But good. I hope you didn't have an answer, because I mean, again, I think I heard it at this table as well as. I mean, yeah, absolutely, right? I have the same answer for that one as I do when, I'm like, I'm at the bank, getting some change, and then all of a sudden the masked robber comes in, and then, I'm like, yeah, and like, karate chop the guy, like we all know that's gonna happen, right? But like, so I'm like, yeah, of course, right? I'd be like, bring it on, Romans. But I don't think that that's gonna happen. Yeah, I'd love for that to be my answer, but I think my answer is closer to yours. So. Yeah. Well, I think I did go over. I'm sorry. But I do want to say thank you. I'm always humbled as ever to let me teach. I was really nervous about this one because this is like less history than I'm used to and more like opinions. And I'm sorry you guys forced to listen to it. I mean, I guess you weren't forced. You didn't have to come. But I was just trying to get out of what Martyrs could teach us. And so hopefully you got something. So thank you. Yeah.